She slapped me on her wedding day, in the house I built with my own 2 hands. The sound cracked in the quiet study, sharp and shocking. She thought the old carpenter was broken, ready for the scrapyard. She was about to find out I don't just build things, I demolish them too. My name is Thomas. I spent my life building dreams out of wood and nails. But tonight, my own dream felt like it was collapsing around me. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world. It all started with the roses. The music was soft jazz. It drifted through the warm evening air. It mixed with the smell of the roses, Mary's roses. They were everywhere, bright red and yellow, climbing the trellis I put up 30 years ago. My backyard was packed, maybe 100 people, all dressed up. Fairy lights hung between the old oak trees. They twinkled like stars against the darkening sky. It looked perfect, like a movie scene. But it felt wrong. Something cold was hiding beneath the warmth. I'm a carpenter, or I was. I spent my life making things, houses, furniture. But the most important thing I ever built was this house, the one hosting the wedding reception tonight. This house wasn't just wood and bricks, it was my life. I remember when Mary and I bought the land. We were 25, young, full of hope. We didn't have much money. We couldn't afford a finished house. So we built it, piece by piece, weekend by weekend. It took 5 years. 5 years of sweat, arguments over paint colors, and peanut butter sandwiches eaten on the unfinished floor. This house held every memory. It was the silent witness to our lives. And tonight it felt like it was holding its breath. Then, 5 years ago, Mary got sick. The house became our safe place. I remodeled the downstairs bedroom so she wouldn't have to climb the stairs. I took care of her here, right until the end. When she passed away, a part of me died too. The house became quiet, too quiet, but it was the only place I still felt her. I'd sit on the porch swing, smell the roses, and I could almost hear her laughing in the kitchen. Tonight was supposed to be happy. My son Ethan was getting married to Chloe. I wanted them to have a beautiful start. Mary would have wanted that. So I offered the backyard. I didn't realize I was offering up my soul. I watched them from my spot near the oak tree. Ethan looked handsome in his dark suit. He's a good kid, maybe too gentle, always eager to please. He worked in marketing, a job I didn't fully understand, but he adored Chloe. Chloe, my new daughter-in-law. She was beautiful. Her dress was lace and silk. It probably cost more than my first truck. She moved through the crowd like a queen. Her smile was bright, polished. Too polished. I had tried to connect with Chloe. I really had. I showed her Mary's recipe books, tried to make her feel like family, but there was a hardness under the surface, a calculating look in her eyes. She wasn't interested in the stories behind the furniture. When she first visited, she didn't comment on the fireplace or the view of the garden. She asked about the square footage, the property taxes. She talked about potential, upgrades, market value. She didn't see a home. She saw an investment, and I was just the old furniture that came with it. I tried to push those thoughts away. Ethan loved her. That had to be enough. "You okay, Thomas?" I turned. It was my sister, Sarah. She had Mary's eyes, kind and observant. She had been my rock since Mary passed away. "I'm fine, Sarah. Just catching my breath. It's a beautiful wedding," she said, sipping her wine. She adjusted her shawl, a habit when she was worried. "The yard looks magical." "Mary would have loved it," I said. "Yes, she would." Sarah paused. Her voice dropped low. "But I have to ask, Thomas, what's the plan for Ethan and Chloe? Are they staying here?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. I had offered them a temporary solution. Their lease was up. "Just for a little while," I said. "I told them they could use the guest suite upstairs while they save up for a down payment." Sarah frowned. She adjusted her shawl again. "Are you sure that's a good idea, Thomas? Chloe seems to have very specific ideas about this house." "What do you mean?" I asked. A cold dread started creeping into my heart. I already knew the answer. "I overheard her talking to her bridesmaids earlier," Sarah said. "She wasn't just talking. She was planning." Sarah leaned closer. "She was showing them the kitchen, talking about tearing out the cabinets, the ones you built for Mary." My stomach twisted. Those cabinets held Mary's favorite mugs, her spices. "She wants marble countertops," Sarah continued. "Stainless steel appliances. She was talking like the house was already hers, Thomas. Then Sarah delivered the killing blow. She called it a fixer-upper with great bones. A fixer-upper. My home. My life's work. Reduced to a real estate cliché. I had heard similar comments from Chloe. Little jabs about the outdated decor. I dismissed them as youthful arrogance, a lack of tact. But hearing it from Sarah made it feel real. It felt like a strategy. It's just excitement, Sarah, I said, trying to convince myself. They're young. They're dreaming. Maybe, Sarah said. She didn't believe me. But be careful, Thomas. Don't let anyone push you around. This is your home. Before I could respond, the music shifted. It was time for the toasts. The moment the real performance would begin. Ethan spoke first. He thanked everyone. His voice trembled with emotion. He spoke kindly of me, of Mary. He talked about growing up here. The smell of sawdust and baking bread. For a moment, he seemed like my boy again. The boy who used to help me sand wood in the garage. Then Chloe took the microphone. Her white dress glittered under the lights. She looked like a princess in a castle. My castle. Thank you all for being here, she began. Her voice was smooth as silk, trained. Ethan and I are so excited to begin our future. And what a future it will be. She paused. She swept her arm dramatically, indicating the house and the yard. Like she owned it. We look forward to filling this beautiful home with children, with laughter, with a new generation. My blood ran cold. She wasn't talking about visiting. She was talking about occupying. This house is the foundation of the family we are building. Starting today, Chloe continued, her smile blinding. We are so grateful to Thomas. She looked at me. Her eyes were hard, despite the smile. Grateful for ensuring our future is secure, she said, and for understanding the importance of passing the torch. A few people clapped awkwardly. The implication hung heavy in the air. She spoke as if I had already given them the house, as if I were a guest in my own home, ready to bow out gracefully. I felt a tightness in my chest. I couldn't breathe. Ethan looked uncomfortable. He glanced nervously at me. He knew this wasn't the plan, but Chloe squeezed his hand. He turned back to the crowd. His face went passive. He was already under her spell. My son was gone, replaced by this compliant stranger. The party resumed, but the joy had leaked out of the evening for me. The music felt too loud, the laughter too shrill. The twinkling lights suddenly seemed cold and artificial. I needed a moment of quiet. I needed to escape. I needed to hide. I retreated into the house, slipping through the kitchen door. I walked through the dining room. My hand traced the familiar grain of the oak table I had built. The scratches and dents were a map of our family history. Chloe wanted to erase that map. I went into my study. The small room off the living room, my sanctuary. I sat in Mary's favorite armchair. I traced the worn fabric with my hand. The room still smelled faintly of her perfume and old paper. I closed my eyes, remembering her voice. Thomas, she said once, never forget the value of what we built. It's not about the money. It's about the love. But love wasn't enough to protect it. The study door clicked open. I opened my eyes, expecting Sarah. It was Chloe. She closed the door behind her. The sound of the music outside became muffled. She stood before me, still holding her champagne glass. Her eyes were bright, not with happiness, with ambition. The predator had cornered her prey. Thomas, we need to talk, she said. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. The sweet bride facade was gone. The mask was off. Chloe, this really isn't the time, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I felt trapped in my own sanctuary. You should be out there with your guests, with Ethan. Oh, they can wait. This is more important. She took a sip of champagne. Her eyes were cold and hard as diamonds. It's about the house. The confrontation I had been dreading was finally here. And I wasn't ready. What about the house, Chloe? I asked, though I already knew. My heart pounded against my ribs, like a trapped bird. It's time to finalize the arrangements, she said. She walked over to my desk. She picked up a small wooden bird I had carved for Mary. She turned it over in her manicured hands, inspecting it with a critical eye. Then she set it down, dismissively, like it was worthless junk. My blood began to boil. What arrangements? I asked, playing dumb. delaying the inevitable. The transfer, Thomas. We need you to sign the house over to us. She paused, letting the words sink in. Tonight, the audacity. The sheer gall on her wedding day. In my home. She couldn't even wait 24 hours. Chloe, we discussed this, I said, trying to remain calm. Trying to appeal to reason, where there was none. You and Ethan are welcome to stay here while you save up. That was the agreement. But I am not signing the house over to you. This is my home. It was your home, she corrected. Her voice sharpened. Now it needs to be ours. We are starting a family. She walked around the desk, invading my space. She leaned forward. Her expensive perfume overwhelmed the faint scent of Mary. Let's be practical, Thomas. You're one man rattling around in this big place all alone. Then she twisted the knife. It's frankly selfish. I stiffened. Selfish. I built this house. I spent my life creating this home. I shared it with my wife. How dare you call me selfish? And we appreciate the gesture, she said. Her voice dripped with false sincerity. But times change. You need to think about the future. Our future. Ethan's future. She reached into a small, beaded purse. I hadn't noticed she was carrying it. It seemed too practical for a bride. It wasn't a purse. It was an arsenal. She pulled out a folded document and a pen. We had the paperwork drawn up by our lawyer, she said, spreading the document on the desk. It was a quitclaim deed, already filled out with the property details. All that was missing was my signature. It's very straightforward. You sign here, and we take care of everything. She smiled, a chilling, triumphant smile. It's a perfect wedding gift. I stared at the document, unable to believe the callousness. The preparation. They had planned this. They had ambushed me. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was a calculated attack. You expect me to sign this? Tonight? Without consulting my own lawyer? It's the perfect time, she insisted. A symbolic gesture. A passing of the torch. Just like I said in my speech. Don't make this difficult, Thomas. She was treating my life like a business transaction. And where do you expect me to go? I asked. My voice was rising in anger. If I sign this, I have no home. We found some lovely options for you, she said brightly. As if she were doing me a favor, she pulled out a brochure from the same purse. It had a picture of a sterile-looking building. Smiling seniors playing shuffleboard. Golden Years Village, she read. They have activities. Meals provided? It's much more manageable for someone your age. You wouldn't have to worry about the upkeep of this old place. Golden Years Village. She wanted to ship me off, to discard me like an old piece of furniture that didn't match her modern decor. She wanted to erase me, just like she wanted to erase Mary's kitchen cabinets. The insult was breathtaking. I stood up. My legs were shaking, fueled by adrenaline and profound offense. Chloe, I am not leaving my home. I am not going to a retirement community. And I am certainly not signing this document. Chloe's smile vanished. Her face hardened instantly. The transformation was terrifying. Thomas, don't be difficult. We need this house. We need the asset. We have plans. Big plans, and this house is the key. This is not an asset, Chloe. This is my life. This is Mary's legacy. Then she said the unforgivable. Mary is dead. Chloe spat. The venom in her tone was shocking. Get over it. This house is just wood and bricks. It's valuable property going to waste. And we need it. The mention of Mary, spoken with such cruelty, it felt like a physical blow. It knocked the wind out of me. A young family needs this house more, she yelled, emphasizing every word, as if speaking to a slow child. You've had your time. It's our turn now. You owe it to Ethan. I looked at this woman, this stranger who had just married my son. I saw nothing but cold, calculating greed. No empathy, no respect. I thought of Mary. I thought of the decades of sweat and love poured into this house, and I found my voice. No, I said. The word was quiet, but firm. It held the weight of my entire life. Chloe's eyes widened in disbelief. She wasn't used to being told no. What did you say? I said no. Absolutely not. Her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful old man. We are doing you a favor. We are giving you a chance to be part of our lives. To be a grandfather. The threat, the ultimate manipulation. She was weaponizing my future grandchildren, holding them hostage in exchange for the house. She thought she had found my weakness. She was wrong. Get out of my study, I commanded. Pointing to the door, my voice trembled with contained fury. I'm not going anywhere until you sign this paper, she screamed. She stepped closer, her face inches from mine, her breath hot and sour with champagne. You will sign it, or I will make your life a living hell. I will turn him against you. You will die alone in this dusty museum. No, I repeated. Standing my ground, I would not be bullied. Not in my house. And then it happened. Fast as a striking snake, her hand lashed out. Slap. The sound echoed in the small room. Sharp, shocking, stung, hot and sharp against my cheek. More than the pain, it was the shock, the utter disrespect, the violence. I raised my hand to my face, staring at her in disbelief. She stood there, breathing hard, her chest heaving in her expensive dress. Her eyes were blazing, not with regret, but with triumph. She thought she had won. She thought the violence would break me, intimidate me, into submission. But she was wrong. So very wrong. The slap didn't break me. It clarified everything. It burned away the fog of denial I had been living in regarding Chloe. I saw exactly who she was, and I knew exactly what I had to do. The sadness I felt was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I was a builder. It was time to start demolition. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I simply looked at her, letting the silence stretch, letting her see the mistake she had made. Then I walked back to my desk. I picked up the phone. What are you doing? She demanded. Sounding slightly nervous now, the triumph in her eyes wavered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. Who are you calling? The police? She laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. Go ahead. Tell them your daughter-in-law slapped you. They'll laugh. They'll see an old man causing drama at a wedding. It's a family matter. They won't interfere. She still thought she was in control. She still underestimated me. I ignored her. I dialed the number I knew by heart. A number I hoped I would never have to use. A number Mary and I had agreed upon years ago. Just in case. The line clicked. Hello? A familiar voice answered. Mr. Harrison, I said. My voice was surprisingly calm, even to my own ears. It's Thomas. I need you to come to the house. Immediately. Thomas? Is everything all right? It's late on a Saturday. No, it's not all right. It's late on a Saturday. No, it's not all right, I said, looking directly at Chloe. Her confidence was rapidly eroding, replaced by confusion. It's time to execute the contingency plan. I paused. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Mr. Harrison. Our family lawyer for decades. He knew exactly what that meant. His voice turned grave. Are you absolutely sure, Thomas? There's no going back once we do this. The consequences are permanent. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. My hand touched the throbbing pain on my cheek. She crossed the line. She just triggered the clause. Understood. We will be there in 20 minutes. I'll bring my associate as a witness. I hung up the phone. The trap was set. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. Contingency plan, clause 5.2. Chloe laughed. She was trying to regain her confidence, but her eyes betrayed her fear. What is that? Your will? You're going to cut Ethan out? Go ahead, he doesn't need your money. We have plans. You'll see, I said. I sat back down in Mary's armchair. I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. My mind was clear. I was no longer afraid. I was in control. We waited in silence. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Chloe paced back and forth like a caged animal, checking her makeup in the reflection of the glass bookshelf. She seemed convinced that whatever I had done was an empty threat, a pathetic attempt to salvage my pride. She didn't know about Mary's foresight. Just then, the study door burst open. Ethan stood there, his face flushed, his bow tie askew. What is going on? He demanded. His eyes darted between me and Chloe. The music stopped. People are talking. Chloe, why are you in here? Dad, what happened? He looked at my face. I could feel the red mark beginning to bruise, the imprint of her hand visible on my skin. His eyes widened in shock. Dad, your face. What happened? This was the moment of truth, the moment my son would choose. Chloe rushed to him, transforming instantly into a weeping victim. The transition was seamless, terrifyingly practiced. Oh, Ethan, it was horrible, she sobbed, burying her face in his shoulder. Your father, he attacked me. What? Ethan looked at me, his expression horrified. He believed her. Instantly, my heart cracked. I didn't attack her, Ethan, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was breaking. She demanded the house. Tonight, she had the deed ready. When I refused, she slapped me. He's lying, Chloe shrieked. Her shoulders shook with fake distress. He was saying horrible things about us. He said you were weak, and that I was a gold digger. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and pleading. When I defended you, when I defended our marriage, he lunged at me. I had to push him away. Then she delivered the final, calculated blow. He's unstable, Ethan. He's losing his mind. I think he's getting dementia. The accusation of dementia, designed to discredit me, to make me seem unreliable, to make my words worthless. I watched my son. I waited for him to see the truth. I waited for him to recognize the manipulation, the blatant lies. I waited for the boy I raised, the boy Mary and I taught about honesty and respect. To stand up for his father, I waited for him to look at the evidence. The bruise on my face, the hysteria in her voice. Ethan looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and doubt. He looked at Chloe, clinging to him, weeping hysterically, and he made his choice. He held Chloe tighter. He looked at me with eyes filled with accusation and anger. Dad, how could you? He whispered, his voice trembling. On our wedding day, how could you ruin this for us? How could you attack my wife? My heart shattered. It was a pain far deeper, far more profound than the slap. My son, my own flesh and blood, sided with her. He believed her lies. He chose her over me. The betrayal was complete. Ethan, she is manipulating you, I said, trying one last time, though I knew it was futile. Look at the facts. No, Dad. He was yelling now, his voice filled with a resentment I had never heard before. You are the one being manipulative. You always resented Chloe. You never gave her a chance. This is our future. Then he echoed her words, and the words that cut the deepest. Why are you being so selfish? Selfish. Selfish. The word hit me like another slap. The noise had attracted attention. I could see guests gathered in the hallway, whispering, staring. My sister Sarah was at the front, her face pale with worry. She looked at my cheek, then at Chloe. I saw the understanding dawn in her eyes. Everything is fine, Chloe announced, pulling herself out of Ethan's arms. Her tears vanished instantly. She straightened her dress and smiled brightly at the onlookers. Just a little family disagreement. Thomas is just having a hard time letting go. It's emotional for him. She was already managing the narrative, controlling the story. She walked out of the study, dragging Ethan with her. She stopped in the living room, looking around with a possessive air, already reasserting her dominance. You know, she said loudly to the guests nearby, ignoring the horrified silence that had fallen over the party. I think we'll tear down this wall, open up the space, let some light in. This place is so dated. She pointed towards the study, towards Mary's chair, and that awful armchair has got to go. She was already redecorating in my house, while I was still living in it, while the wound she inflicted was still fresh. I sat in the study, feeling older and more tired than I ever had in my life. I had lost my son. He was gone, consumed by this woman's greed and his own weakness. I looked at the picture of Mary on my desk. It was taken on our 10th anniversary. We were sitting on the porch swing, smiling. I'm sorry, Mary, I whispered. I tried, but then I remembered the contingency plan.
And I remembered why we created it. Mary knew. She always knew. Mary and I had always been planners. We prepared for the worst. And Mary had an intuition about people. She saw the good, but she also recognized the darkness. About 10 years ago, Ethan had gotten into trouble in college. Gambling.
Debts. We had to bail him out. It was a wake-up call. He was too trusting, too easily influenced. He has a good heart, Thomas, Mary had said, but he's weak. We need to protect him from himself, and we need to protect what we built. So, we had gone to see Mr. Harrison. We created something stronger than a will, something that anticipated this exact moment. We created an irrevocable trust. We transferred the ownership of the house and most of our assets into the trust. I was the trustee. I controlled the assets during my lifetime. Ethan was the primary beneficiary. He would inherit everything after I was gone, but Mary insisted on adding a specific clause, the contingency plan. Clause 5.2. We need a poison pill, she had said. Something that stops greed in its tracks. Something that protects our legacy from predators. The clause stated that if any beneficiary or their spouse attempted to coerce, manipulate, or abuse me in order to gain early access to the assets, they would be immediately and irrevocably disqualified. It was a drastic measure, but it was necessary. Mary saw the future with a clarity I never possessed. I looked at her picture again. You were right, Mary. You were always right. And now it was time to drop the pill. I waited. I watched the clock on the mantelpiece. Tick, tock. Outside, Chloe continued her grand tour of the house, oblivious to what was coming. She pointed out where the nursery would go, where the new stainless steel appliances would be installed. She was the queen of the castle, enjoying her brief reign. Ethan followed her like a shadow, his face a mixture of anxiety and resignation. He was trapped in the web he helped weave. 20 minutes after the phone call, the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. The murmuring of the guests stopped abruptly. I stood up and walked out of the study. Chloe, looking annoyed at the interruption, went to answer the door. Who could that be? She muttered. The party is just getting started. She opened the door. 2 men stood on the porch, dressed in sharp suits. One was Mr. Harrison, a man I had known for 30 years. Gray hair, sharp eyes. The other was his younger associate, carrying a briefcase and a small video camera. The cavalry had arrived. Yes? Chloe said, looking them up and down dismissively. We are having a private party. If you're selling something, we're not interested. Mr. Harrison ignored her. He looked straight at me. Thomas, we came as soon as you called. He glanced at my cheek. His expression darkened. I see the mark on your face. Thank you, James, I said, stepping forward. The game was over. Chloe looked confused. Thomas, who are these people? This is James Harrison. My lawyer, I said. Chloe's face lit up. She thought she understood. She thought I had finally capitulated. Oh, I see. You realized you were being foolish. You called your lawyer to finalize the deed transfer. She smiled brightly at Mr. Harrison. Good timing. You can witness the signature.
Come in, it's beautiful property, isn't it?
Great bones. She still didn't get it. She was about to learn an expensive lesson. Mr. Harrison didn't smile. I walked into the living room. His associate followed close behind. He raised the video camera, already recording the scene. The guests fell silent. Sensing the shift in the atmosphere, the air crackled with anticipation. Ethan, come here, Mr. Harrison said, his voice calm but authoritative. Ethan stepped forward, looking nervous. Sir? The stage was set. Mr. Harrison? I said, my voice clear and loud enough for everyone to hear. Please proceed with the execution of Clause 5.2 of the Thomas and Mary Irrevocable Trust. Mr. Harrison nodded. He opened his briefcase. He pulled out a thick stack of documents. What is going on? Chloe demanded. Her voice shrill. Where is the quitclaim deed? The one I brought. Mr. Harrison looked at her, his expression cold. Mrs. Chloe Thomas, there will be no deed transfer today. In fact, there will never be a deed transfer to you. The silence was deafening. Chloe stared at him, dumbfounded. What are you talking about? This house is ours. Thomas agreed. Thomas agreed to nothing, Mr. Harrison said. And technically, this house does not belong to Thomas. It belongs to the Thomas and Mary Irrevocable Trust. He turned to the assembled guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption to this celebration. However, a serious legal matter needs to be addressed. He turned back to Ethan and Chloe. The spotlight was on them now, and they were starting to The trust established by Thomas and Mary contains very specific instructions. Mr. Harrison explained. These instructions included a clause. Clause 5.2, the poison pill. He paused for effect. It concerns coercion, manipulation, and elder abuse. I saw Chloe pale under her makeup. Her eyes darted towards the door, looking for an escape. Elder abuse? That's ridiculous, she sputtered. He attacked me. He has dementia. She was trapped, and she knew it. We have reason to believe, Mr. Harrison continued, ignoring her outburst, that Thomas has been subjected to undue pressure and physical assault this evening. In an attempt to force him to surrender his property, he gestured towards his associate. The documented evidence, the quitclaim deed you prepared, the retirement home brochure, and the visible injury on Thomas's face, which I witnessed upon my arrival and is currently being recorded, corroborates this belief. The guests gasped. Ethan looked horrified, the reality of the situation finally dawning on him. My sister Sarah nodded grimly from the back of the room. Justice was finally being served. As per the instructions in Clause 5.2, Mr. Harrison said, his voice ringing with finality. This triggers an immediate reorganization of the trust. He handed the first document to his associate. First, he announced, Ethan Thomas, as the primary beneficiary, is hereby formally disqualified from the trust, effective immediately. What? Ethan whispered, stumbling back as if he had been struck. Disqualified? Dad? You can't do this. The consequences of his weakness. Finally hitting home. You can't do that, Chloe shrieked, her voice hysterical. That's illegal. We will sue you. That's our inheritance. We earned it. It is perfectly legal, madam, Mr. Harrison said calmly. The trust is irrevocable. The clause was designed precisely for this situation. Ethan's complicity in the coercion, his failure to protect his father from abuse, and your direct assault leave us no choice. The evidence is overwhelming. So we get nothing? Chloe asked, her voice trembling with rage and disbelief. The greed was still there, even in the face of total defeat. You get nothing, Harrison confirmed. The final nail in the coffin, the house, the savings, the investments, everything in the trust, Mr. Harrison continued. It all reverts to the secondary beneficiary, Chloe demanded, her eyes narrowing. Who is that? His sister, Sarah. We'll fight her too. We'll destroy her. Mr. Harrison pulled out the final document. He looked at it, then at me. I nodded. It was time to reveal Mary's final masterstroke. The secondary beneficiary, Mr. Harrison announced, his voice booming in the silent room, is the Mary Thomas Memorial Foundation, a charity established by Thomas and Mary. He paused, letting the words land. To support victims of domestic abuse and elder neglect. The irony was painful, yet beautiful. The house that Chloe had tried to steal through violence and abuse would now become a sanctuary for victims of people like her. Poetic justice. And then Chloe started to cry. They weren't the manipulative sobs from earlier. These were real, raw, guttural cries of rage and despair. She realized in that moment that her greed, her entitlement, her violence, had cost her everything. She had played her hand too hard, too fast, and she had lost. The castle she thought she had conquered crumbled around her. You bastard, she screamed at me, lunging forward, her face contorted in an ugly mask of hatred. Mr. Harrison and his associates stepped between us. Mrs. Thomas, I suggest you control yourself. Assaulting your father-in-law once tonight was a mistake that cost you a fortune. Doing it again in front of a lawyer and on camera will result in criminal charges. Chloe froze, then turned her fury on Ethan. This is your fault. You useless, weak man. You told me he would just roll over. You told me he was weak. You let him do this to us. I hate you. Ethan just stood there, his face ashen, staring at the floor. He couldn't even look at me. The realization of his actions, his weakness, his betrayal, crashed down on him all at once. He had lost his wife, his inheritance, and his father, all in one night. The guests started to leave, awkwardly shuffling out the door. The wedding was over. The marriage I suspected was over too. Chloe was still sobbing, screaming obscenities, as Ethan tried to pull her towards the door. She looked back at the house she had coveted, and she knew she would never set foot in it again. They left. The door closed behind them, and the house was finally quiet. Mr. Harrison and his associate packed up their briefcases. We will handle the transition, Thomas. The foundation board is aware. As per the trust agreement, you can remain in the house as a caretaker for as long as you wish, rent-free. Thank you, James, I said, shaking his hand. My body was trembling now, the adrenaline fading, leaving behind a profound exhaustion. They left, leaving me alone with Sarah. We sat in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of the party. The silence was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock. I lost him, Sarah, I said, the reality of the situation finally hitting me. The victory felt hollow. I had saved the house, but I had lost my son. No, Thomas, Sarah said softly. Taking my hand, her touch was warm and comforting. He lost you, and he lost himself. Maybe someday he'll find his way back. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pride. But you did the right thing. You protected yourself. You protected Mary's legacy. She would be so proud of you. I knew she was right, but it still hurt. The pain in my heart was far worse than the bruise on my cheek. In the months that followed, I stayed in the house. I tended to Mary's garden. I prepared the house for its new purpose, organizing the rooms, packing away the personal items I wanted to keep. I never saw Chloe again. I heard she left Ethan shortly after the wedding. The annulment was quick and brutal. She had no use for him without the inheritance. He was just another asset, she discarded. Ethan tried to contact me a few times. He left messages on my voicemail, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, blaming Chloe for everything, but the damage was done. The trust was broken. It would take a long time to heal the wounds he had inflicted. I wasn't ready to face him yet. I needed time to heal myself. He had to learn that actions have consequences, that weakness has a price. One evening, about a year later, I was sitting on the porch swing, watching the sunset. The roses were in bloom again, their scent filling the air. The house was ready. The foundation was moving in the next day, turning it into a temporary shelter and resource center. I was packing the last of my belongings. I had found a small apartment downtown, close to the community center where I started volunteering, teaching woodworking to kids. I found a new purpose, a new way to build things, a new way to build hope. I picked up the small wooden bird I had carved, the one Chloe had dismissed so casually. I traced the smooth lines of the wood. I thought of Mary. I missed her terribly, but I felt a profound sense of peace. We had built a life, a home, a family, and when it was threatened, I had protected it. I had stood my ground. The house was no longer mine. My son was estranged, but I still had my dignity. I still had my memories, and I had the satisfaction of knowing that Mary's legacy was secure. Stronger than ever, I closed the door of the study, leaving Mary's picture on the desk, a reminder of the love that built this house, and the love that would continue to fill it, helping others find their way back to safety. I was Thomas, the carpenter. I built things to last. Sometimes, the strongest foundations are the ones built, not just with wood and bricks, but with courage and justice. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.